Good afternoon. The purpose of this presentation is to highlight the main aspects of the negotiation between the airlines, LAN and TAM. We are Diana Olmos, Maria Alejandra Morales, and Daniel Rodriguez.
LAN is a Chilean airline with more than 82 years of experience serving passengers and cargo clients, with subsidiaries in Colombia, Peru, Ecuador, and Argentina. It has 70 different destinations in 17 countries. It comes with an aircraft of 131 airplanes.
TAM is a Brazilian airline with 41 years in the market. After the negotiation, it was Latin America's largest airline, serving 14 countries, 63 destinations, and 34 million passengers, with a total of 151 airplanes.
We use a field analysis in order to understand the context of this negotiation. It took place between the Cueto family and Amaro family, which are the owners of these companies.
LAN executives were assisted by consultant firms such as Cariola Diaz y Perez and Claro y Cia, while TAM hired a group of banks to support the negotiations such as BTG Pactual.
As interested observers, we found the Chilean and Brazilian government and their main competitors such as Avianca TACA and Gold Varig.
The most relevant factors regarding the environment of this airline industry are
the tendency of airlines to look for joint ventures, strategic alliances, and mergers as a part of their growth and sustainability strategy. For example, GOL, United and Continental Airlines, Delta, KLM, Air France, and Alitalia, Avianca, and TACA.
We also found that since 9/11, it was a huge drop in the demand due to this terrorist attack when airlines had to increase the security measurements, and this led to higher costs.
during the first decade of 21st century, the oil price increased 160% and this trend persists until today.
The Brazilian government has established a law that limits the foreign investment up to 20% of the total shares of a local company.
Taking into account this background, now we can see the interests of both parties.
The main interest of LAN was entering Brazil, the biggest market of Latin America, by acquiring domestic routes.
On the other hand, TAM was looking for an expansion of its operations as well as having foreign presence.
In the cultural analysis, we found similarities and differences among these two South American companies. The European influence in Chile have caused Chileans to be less multi-active than Brazilians, as they are more methodical, patient, and introvert.
In power distance, these two cultures are very similar, as they both have hierarchical social structures and status symbols are used to underline power differences.
In the individual dimensions, it shows that Chileans are more individual than Brazilians. This means that in Brazil, emotional links, such as the family linkages, are expected to be important during the negotiation, while Chileans are less emotional and more autonomous.
The masculinity versus femininity measurement shows that the Chilean culture is much more feminine, where the dominant values are the quality of life and caring for others, while the Brazilian culture is in the middle. They are guided by consensus and avoiding conflict.
In the uncertainty avoidance analysis, both countries have high scores. These societies have a strong need for rules and legal systems, although Chile has lower corruption index than Brazil.
Here is the timeline of the negotiation that started in August of 2010 and ended in July of 2012.
This chart shows the conditions that both parties agreed to proceed in the negotiation. The first one was in August 13, 2012, where both parties signed a memorandum of understanding. Also, the shares of LAN were equal to 0.9 the shares of TAM.
The corporate administration. Each business unit will operate with autonomy. By agreement, shareholders will determine the relationship between both companies.
Regarding corporate structure, LAN would lead the operational changes. They would change the name to LATAM. LATAM would be listed in New York, Santiago, and Sao Paulo stock markets.
And finally, regarding business operations, each entity would manage their brands and maintain independent operations. Also, TAM will continue its operations in Brazil and Paraguay, and LAN will continue its operations in Chile, Peru, Ecuador, Colombia, and Argentina.
We believe both parties used a blue strategy because it was a slow process that led to cooperation and trust.
The tactics they use may include anchoring as companies adjust to the other's offerings.
Log roll because these parties agreed to trade off different issues. LAN, one being in the stock market, and TAM, one having more members in LATAM board of directors.
And mediation. They use lawyers and financial experts as mediators for the negotiation process.
We can say this was an integrative negotiation. It was considered a win-win situation. It was guided to the achievement of both sides' objectives and the finding of new solutions. Therefore, it looked to the expansion of the pie.
What is more, as the parties involved needed to keep a good relationship in the long term, they both worked within a trust frame, which led to a cooperative and long-lasting negotiation process.
We can conclude that this was a successful negotiation because it was based on interests rather than positions, which ended with a wise agreement. With this alliance, LATAM achieved an outstanding position in the market, with an estimated revenue of $11 billion, a total of 120 destinations, and 51 million passengers.
LATAM will rank among the world's leading airlines in terms of revenue, passengers, and cargo.
It will be the best airline in the South American region.
Two local leaders equal a global giant.
Finally, we can say that they also had an extensive route network. Thank you for your attention.